Enter the Stars, Alien Covenant, is finally here to decode. And the opening of this film is the eye. Everything we've been talking about. As David opens his eyes for the first time, he's the droid, the android that looks so human, opens his eyes and he asks what the first thing that he sees is. Let's decode this film. Now, many channels will tell you that this is Illuminati and things like that, but only one channel is going to dig as deep as we will here on Enter the Stars. Now, here you see the opening scenes, and they show the Covenant spacecraft, and it is carrying colonists and embryos. Now, the numbers mean everything, because December 5th is very close to Mother Mary Day, which just so happens to be when the embryo of Christ was in Mary's womb. 2 weeks later, conception would occur. In other words, the sperm meeting the egg on 12/21, the darkest day of the year that Christ brought light to the world. And at that point, 38 weeks after that, we had 9/11, the day that Christ would be born. Are you starting to understand the covenant, the Christ covenant? But of course, all this is the dark side version of the truth. We had the Ark of the Covenant as well. And in the book that I'm reading by Graham Hancock, called The Sign and the Seal, there is undisputable proof that Mary's womb in antiquity was compared to the Ark, the vessel. And then we compared the Ark of the Covenant to the Noah's Ark, which also carried seeds. Are you starting to understand what all this really means? Let's dig deeper. So now we begin to understand that the seed is the remnant, the repeating theme over and over and over again throughout the Bible. The remnant of Noah, the remnant of the Israelites, and finally the remnant of Christ. So without even seeing the rest of this film yet, my guess is that this is going to be the remnant of the alien, the dark side version. And what you're looking at here is the actual Covenant ship. And there you see the hexagons. There are six six-sided hexagons. And there are 66 books in the Bible. But then you see an underside. There is another set of 6 hexagons underneath this ship. And this is what they're depicting. This is what Hollywood's all about, presenting to you the dark side version to trick you so that you never find the truth. And that's what we're here to do, to decode these films so that we may somehow find and read between the lines to find the ultimate truth in this reality. So they deploy these sails which recharge the ship, and of course the sails are the X. This is the mark. The X is the mark of the beast, the curse upon us all, just as it's depicted here in the opening scenes of Alien. Now, in watching these films, you gotta learn to read between the lines. They come out of hypersleep early because some kind of neutrino blast hits the ship, and there's a fire in one of the pods. Branson gets roasted alive. His pod catches fire before they can remove him, and he's roasted inside of the pod. Branson is ransom, and this is a knock on Christ. That's what it is, who paid the ransom sacrifice for us. Here they're showing him depicted burning in hell. Obviously that didn't happen, but this is how they're depicting it. Now, we knew there'd be biblical overtones in this film. Here's the confirmation that what I just said about the ransom is in fact true. The girlfriend, as she mourns the passing of her boyfriend Branson, ties a nail around a necklace and puts it around her neck. Those are the nails that crucified Christ. Do you see how it just works itself out? Once you know the signs and symbols, it is what it is. So let's see how this plot develops. But right off the bat, as they're assessing the damages, they acknowledge that 47 colonists were lost. Of course, there's that number 47 again. 47 was the Hebrew year that the World Trade Center 7 opened. That was 47 stories tall. The year that it opened in the Hebrew year 47 was 1987, which just so happened to be the exact halfway point between the opening of the World Trade Center and its destruction in 2001. What are the odds of that happening? Now, all of that whole story of the World Trade Center overlays the bloodline of Christ. And this man who died, initially his name was Jacob Branson. Jacob, of course, was in the bloodline of Christ as well. Remember Jacob and Esau in the Bible? Now, I like decoding these films that have already a biblical backdrop because it's so much easier to connect dots that no one else is going to connect, and they become more believable because you're already put against the backdrop of the biblical narrative. And it just clarifies everything. It just goes to show that all of these films have a biblical backdrop. All of them. Let's keep going and see how the plot develops. Here we see the Christ theme continue to develop as she describes a cabin in the woods that she's going to build with nails, and that's why she had the nail around her neck. She was supposed to build it with Branson, but now Branson is dead. Well, who builds cabins, you guys? Carpenters. Exactly. Now, it's important to get all the decoding out of the way before all the action starts, because usually it's just action. There's not a lot to decode later in these films. So they do this send-off, like a little funeral, and they basically put the dead body out the airlock. And they turn to Walter the android. Walter, Wal is Vol, which there's a lot behind the word wall. Okay, you guys. Walmart, wall is law backwards. It is packed. Lupercalia is linked into the word wall. Walter is very significant. And Walter basically they offer him a drink. He's an android. They offer him a drink, and he says, "When in Rome," as they send off the Christ figure into space. And of course, we got the Carpenter theme. We've got the Rome theme. It's all there. It all fits perfectly. Now, for you Alien fans out there, you'll recognize the front of the Covenant ship. And it looks like the Narcissus from the very first film, which of course looks like a serpent head. The Narcissus was from the book. The N-word of Narcissus was what it was called. They later renamed that book. It's a classic tale which involves a seed, a serpent seed. But basically it's depicting the serpent basically has taken over. This is the head of the ship, has taken over the human race, our reality here, and infected all of us. And here you see the story of the N-word of Narcissus. And it is about a lone black man on a ship, which then causes a mutiny, and which is exactly what happens in pretty much all of the Alien films. You've got the alien, and that's what they're trying to create an analogy between the black person on this ship and the alien. Do you see how that works? Like the dark seed or something like that. And the throwback to the original Alien film regarding the ship called the Narcissus. Now, the Narcissus, I believe, was a ship that they used to escape. Sigourney Weaver escaped in the Narcissus, but the alien was still on the ship. Remember that. It was attached to that escape ship, and it was trying to get back to civilization to then infect all of the world. Here's a good shot of the hexagon-based ship, 6x6. And of course, they pick up a rogue signal, and we get our 87 confirmation, which is the sector from which the rogue signal, the alien signal, comes from. Now, the aliens are smart and cunning, just like the serpent in the garden. And the transmission that they play to lure the humans in is this song, Take Me Home, Country Roads, by John Denver. Now, I went through this and I could not find anything in here that links to any clues. The song released in April 1971, a couple years before I was born. I could not find anything in this song that links back to either Christ or the Alien film. So this is where you guys come in. If there's anything in here that you can find that fits into the narrative that is starting to unfold with this film, please let us know in the comments. Now, the wife of the dead crew member objects to landing on this planet. She smells a trap, and she's right. But the new captain, he quotes Christ. He says, "Ye of little faith." More direct Christ references. Then they stumble upon the trees. They're all cut off, and we talked a lot about the tree stumps and what those might mean on this planet Earth. That once the trees may have reached to heaven, and they were all cut off with the fall of man. And what he says here is pretty amazing. He says something huge came through here, and whatever it is, it's up there. And they really want you to see the tree stumps. Okay, this isn't just in our heads. We've been talking about these tree stumps, you guys, for a year now. And now every single film shows these tree stumps. And before they were showing the tree stumps, we explained to you what tree stumps were, and then all of a sudden they magically started appearing in all these films. With the backdrop of the context of heaven. Now, 2 people are infected on the expedition, one through the ear and one through the nose. So we're getting like the 5 senses. We saw the eyes, the ears, and now the nose, the smell. Now, in this portion of the movie, I told you guys about the canopic jars of ancient Egypt. These were the jars that they put all of the organs, internal organs of the Egyptian pharaohs into, that would then reduce down to a DNA of black goo. Well, that is what's being represented here, as he unleashes this weapon onto these ancient peoples. Basically, it is a bunch of canopic jars, released down with the black goo inside. Here you see they show it falling as a DNA helix. These to me look like structures of the inner brain, maybe. So we begin to see this weapon dropped, which is the black DNA. It's the black goo, the fallen angel DNA falling onto the peoples to contaminate them and cause havoc. And in fact, the alien was definitely a weapon of sorts.